Have you ever trusted a legendary show, a series that felt like a gift to the world, teaching morals, family, and success, only to find out it was all hiding a dark, disturbing truth? The Cosby Show wasn't just a sitcom, it was a symbol, until shocking crimes shattered its image forever. What was the infamous scene that marked the moment everything fell apart? Get ready to uncover the truth behind the fall of a TV giant, a groundbreaking sitcom. Premiering on September 20th, 1984, The Cosby Show arrived at a moment when American television was searching for fresh narratives and new voices. Created by Bill Cosby, Ed Weinberger, and Michael J. Leon, the series followed the daily lives of the Huxtables, an upper-middle-class African-American family living in Brooklyn. At the center of the story was Dr. Heathcliff "Cliff" Huxtable, a successful obstetrician, portrayed by Cosby himself, and his wife, Claire, a sharp, ambitious attorney played by Felicia Rashad. Together, they raised 5 children, balancing the challenges of work, marriage, and parenthood. From its first episode, the show captured the attention of audiences with its wit, heart, and groundbreaking portrayal of a black family that defied long-standing stereotypes on television. The Cosby Show was more than a sitcom, it was a cultural movement. At a time when black families were often depicted in poverty or dysfunction on television, the Huxtables offered viewers an image of success, stability, and love. Cosby, drawing from his stand-up routines and personal life, presented a family dynamic that was warm, humorous, and familiar to audiences of all backgrounds. As TV Guide once noted, the show almost single-handedly revived the sitcom genre and NBC's ratings fortunes during the 1980s. For 5 consecutive seasons, it was the #1 rated show in America, a feat matched only by All in the Family and American Idol. The series remained a top 20 hit throughout its 8-year run, and its influence reached far beyond U.S. borders, becoming a commercial and ratings success in Europe and other markets where black-led shows had rarely found wide audiences. The show's setting and character choices were deliberate and meaningful. Cliff Huxtable was a doctor. Claire Huxtable was a lawyer. This decision, reportedly influenced by Cosby's wife, Camille, shifted the show from its original concept of a working-class couple to one that showcased black professional excellence. The Huxtable home became a symbol of black aspiration and achievement, set against the backdrop of New York City. The family's experiences, though specific, spoke universally about parenting, education, and personal growth. The Cosby Show had a profound impact on television programming. It paved the way for other shows with predominantly black casts, including A Different World, its own successful spin-off, In Living Color, and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It also helped normalize black success on screen, influencing how networks considered diversity in casting and storytelling. Felicia Rashad's portrayal of Claire Huxtable inspired what critics and academics dubbed the Claire Huxtable effect, a rise in working mothers portrayed in a positive, empowered light on television. Moreover, The Cosby Show shaped the fashion and pop culture of its time. Cliff Huxtable's colorful sweaters became iconic, even inspiring a brief fashion revival in the 2010s. Cosby's role earned him the title America's Dad, reflecting the deep affection viewers felt for the character he embodied. Notably, the series also made inroads internationally. In South Africa, for example, the show aired during the final years of apartheid. When Felicia Rashad met Nelson Mandela, he reportedly told her that he and his fellow prisoners had watched The Cosby Show and that it gave them hope for a different future. The show's positive, humanizing depiction of black life resonated globally, showing that good storytelling could transcend borders and cultural barriers. The financial success of The Cosby Show was unprecedented. It generated an estimated $2.5 billion in television revenue, with $1 billion from advertising and $1.5 billion from syndication sales. This success not only made Bill Cosby the highest-paid actor on television at the time, but also solidified the business model of family-oriented sitcoms as a reliable ratings and revenue generator for networks. The show's success also elevated Carsey-Werner Productions, the fledgling company behind the series. After The Cosby Show, the production team went on to develop other major hits, including Roseanne and Third Rock from the Sun. Cosby's insistence on taping in New York rather than Los Angeles broke convention and set a new precedent for where high-profile sitcoms could be produced. The fall of Bill Cosby. However, the legacy of The Cosby Show became irreversibly complicated in the 2010s as multiple allegations of sexual assault against its star and creator, Bill Cosby, came to light. The earliest allegations against Bill Cosby date back to December 1965, with Christina Rulli, then a 22-year-old secretary at a talent agency, alleging that Cosby had drugged and assaulted her in his Beverly Hills home. Rulli did not make her accusation public until 2005, when she was identified as Jane Doe No. 12 in the Andrea Constand case. She stated that she had accompanied Cosby to his home, where he offered her 2 bourbon and cokes. According to Rulli, she blacked out after drinking and awoke naked in Cosby's bed, with Cosby attempting to force her to perform oral sex. Rulli said she resisted and fled the house. Decades later, she told her story as part of Constand's legal proceedings and later to the media, noting that she had shared the incident with her boyfriend at the time and her daughter in the 1980s. Over the following decades, more women came forward with allegations of similar assaults, though these stories largely remained out of the public eye or were dismissed. In the early 1980s, Joan Tarshish, a comedy writer, confided in a journalist about an alleged assault by Cosby during a professional meeting, but her account was not published. Similarly, in 1996, Playboy playmate Victoria Valentino gave a videotaped interview alleging sexual assault by Cosby as part of a documentary on Playboy models' lives. However, the expose never aired. In 2000, Cosby faced his first criminal complaint when Laquelle Covington, a 20-year-old aspiring actress, accused him of inappropriate sexual conduct at his Manhattan townhouse. Covington alleged that Cosby had groped her and exposed himself after inviting her to his home under the pretense of offering career guidance. The New York Police Department referred the case to the district attorney's office, but no charges were filed. Cosby denied any wrongdoing, claiming the accusations were baseless. The most prominent early case came in 2004 when Andrea Constand, an employee of Temple University's athletics department, alleged that Cosby had invited her to his home to discuss her career and personal concerns, including her father's health. She reported that he offered her 3 blue pills, claiming they were herbal supplements to help her relax, along with a glass of wine. Constance stated that after ingesting the substances, she became incapacitated and could not move or speak, at which point Cosby sexually assaulted her. She filed a complaint with law enforcement in 2005, but the Montgomery County District Attorney at the time, Bruce Castor, declined to press charges due to what he called insufficient credible evidence. Constance subsequently filed a civil suit against Cosby, joined by 13 women who were prepared to testify to similar experiences if the case went to trial. The lawsuit was settled in 2006 for an undisclosed amount, later revealed to be approximately $3.38 million. Despite these serious allegations, Cosby's public image as America's dad remained largely unscathed throughout the 2000s. His reputation as a moral authority, particularly through his speeches criticizing the behavior and values of younger generations in the black community, allowed him to maintain his status in the public eye. The entertainment industry and much of the media continued to honor his contributions to television, education, and philanthropy. That changed dramatically in October 2014 when comedian Hannibal Buress performed a stand-up routine in Philadelphia that went viral. During his act, Buress criticized Cosby's long history of moral lecturing and highlighted the irony given the sexual assault allegations against him. Buress's line, "Yeah, but you raped women, Bill Cosby," resonated in a way that prior allegations had not. The clip circulated widely online, prompting a surge of media interest and renewed scrutiny of Cosby's past. Following Buress's comments, long-suppressed stories resurfaced. Media outlets began re-examining prior claims, and women who had previously remained silent or been ignored felt empowered to share their experiences. What began as isolated accusations evolved into a flood of allegations that painted a disturbing and consistent pattern of predatory behavior. By early 2015, more than 60 women had publicly accused Cosby of sexual misconduct, with incidents alleged to have occurred from the 1960s through the early 2000s. Among the most high-profile accusers were supermodel Janice Dickinson and actress Beverly Johnson. Dickinson alleged that Cosby had drugged and raped her in 1982 after inviting her to dinner under the pretense of offering her a role on The Cosby Show. She recounted waking up the next morning with no memory of the prior evening, only the sense that she had been violated. Beverly Johnson shared that during what she thought was a professional meeting at Cosby's home in the mid-1980s, Cosby drugged her cappuccino. She became disoriented, but managed to resist and flee before an assault took place. Johnson later reflected that her experience mirrored the accounts of so many other women who had been targeted under similar circumstances. The consistency across the allegations was striking. Cosby allegedly presented himself as a mentor or benefactor, offered substances that left victims incapacitated, and then assaulted them while they were unable to consent or resist. These stories, often spanning decades, shattered the wholesome image of Cosby cultivated through The Cosby Show and his public advocacy for education and morality. The statute of limitations prevented most allegations from resulting in criminal charges. However, in December 2015, Cosby was formally charged with 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault related to the Constand case. The charges centered on allegations that Cosby had given Constand pills that rendered her incapacitated and then sexually assaulted her while she was unable to consent. Cosby's legal team argued that the encounter was consensual and highlighted a lack of forensic evidence due to the delay in reporting. His first trial, held in 2017, ended in a mistrial after the jury failed to reach a unanimous verdict despite 6 days of deliberations. The case was retried in 2018 with significant changes. This time, the judge allowed 5 additional women to testify as prior bad act witnesses, recounting their own experiences of alleged drugging and assault by Cosby. Their testimony aimed to show a pattern of predatory behavior. In April 2018, Cosby was found guilty on all 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault against Constand. The verdict marked a historic moment, as Cosby became one of the most prominent figures convicted during the Me Too era. The judge sentenced him to 3 to 10 years in state prison, imposed a $25,000 fine, and ordered him to register as a sexually violent predator. The conviction was hailed as a milestone for survivors' rights, signaling that even a powerful, wealthy celebrity could be held accountable for sexual crimes. Cosby, then 81 years old, was transferred to SCI Phoenix, a maximum security state prison in Pennsylvania, where he served more than 2 years in custody. However, in June 2021, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned Cosby's conviction. The court ruled that Cosby's due process rights had been violated because of an earlier non-prosecution promise made by then Montgomery County District Attorney Bruce Castor in 2005. Castor had publicly stated that he declined to bring criminal charges against Cosby, reportedly intending to encourage Cosby's cooperation in Constand's civil case without invoking his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Cosby subsequently sat for depositions in the civil case, during which he made damaging admissions about giving women sedatives prior to sexual encounters. These admissions were later used against him in his criminal trial, a use the Pennsylvania Supreme Court deemed fundamentally unfair. The justices wrote that the decision to prosecute Cosby despite this prior agreement amounted to a bait-and-switch that violated constitutional protections. The court further barred any future prosecution on these specific charges, effectively ending legal proceedings related to Constan's criminal complaint. Cosby was released from prison the same day the ruling was announced. His legal team and supporters celebrated the decision as a victory for the rule of law and due process, but for many survivors, advocates, and members of the public, the ruling felt like a devastating setback. The reversal did not erase the fact that a jury had found Cosby guilty, nor did it exonerate him. The justices emphasized that their decision was not a statement about Cosby's guilt or innocence, but rather a procedural judgment about how the prosecution had handled the case. Nonetheless, the outcome fueled intense debate about the justice system's treatment of sexual assault survivors, the complexities of legal agreements, and the barriers victims face in seeking accountability. Though Cosby walked free, his reputation remained profoundly damaged. Institutions that once celebrated him continued to distance themselves. Honorary degrees were not reinstated, and reruns of The Cosby Show remained largely absent from television and streaming platforms. Public opinion polls reflected widespread disapproval, and his legacy as a trailblazer in comedy and television was permanently overshadowed by the scandal, the fallout for The Cosby Show. The final chapter of The Cosby Show and its legacy is a complex and ultimately bittersweet story. When The Cosby Show aired its last episode on April 30th, 1992, titled "And So We Begin," it marked the end of an era for American television. The final episode focused on Theo Huxtable's graduation from New York University, a moment of pride for his fictional parents, Dr. Heathcliff and Claire Huxtable, played by Bill Cosby and Felicia Rashad. The episode closed with the iconic image of Cliff and Claire dancing off the set, a celebratory farewell that echoed the show's consistent blend of humor, love, and aspirational storytelling. In the decades following its finale, The Cosby Show remained beloved in reruns. It was a staple on networks like TV Land, Bounce TV, Centric, and others. Streaming platforms brought the series to new generations, and its themes of family, respect, and perseverance continued to resonate. But everything changed dramatically starting in 2014, when comedian Hannibal Buress's now famous stand-up set went viral. The fallout for The Cosby Show was swift and severe. Networks that once proudly aired reruns of the show distanced themselves. TV Land, Bounce TV, Centric, and others pulled it from their lineups, citing sensitivity to the victims and the growing public backlash. Streaming platforms like Netflix and Hulu, initially hesitant to act, eventually followed suit, ensuring that the series became increasingly hard to find on mainstream services. The financial impact was significant, not only for Cosby but also for the many actors, writers, and production staff who had benefited from syndication royalties. More than that, the removal of The Cosby Show from television and digital libraries marked a painful cultural reckoning. A show that had once been celebrated for breaking barriers and providing meaningful, positive representation for Black families was now inextricably linked to its creators' crimes and moral failings. What had been a source of pride, inspiration, and nostalgia became a complicated artifact, difficult to celebrate without evoking the dark realities that had come to light. How The Cosby Show cast and Hollywood faced the fallout. The fall of Bill Cosby and the unraveling of The Cosby Show's once proud legacy triggered a range of reactions from its cast and from across Hollywood. The cast of The Cosby Show, long celebrated for its groundbreaking depiction of a successful Black family, found themselves grappling with the personal and public ramifications of Cosby's actions. Among the most vocal cast members was Felicia Rashad, who played Claire Huxtable, the wise and accomplished matriarch of the Huxtable family. Throughout the unfolding scandals, Rashad consistently stood by Cosby, defending his character and expressing skepticism about the accusations. Following Cosby's 2021 release from prison after the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned his conviction, Rashad tweeted, "Finally! A terrible wrong is being righted. A miscarriage of justice is corrected." This show of support sparked immediate backlash. Survivors of sexual assault, advocates, and members of the public criticized Rashad for what they saw as a disregard for the experiences of Cosby's accusers. Rashad quickly attempted to clarify her statement, writing, "I fully support survivors of sexual assault coming forward. My post was in no way intended to be insensitive to their truth. Personally, I know from friends and family that such abuse has lifelong residual effects. My heartfelt wish is for healing." Yet the damage was done. Her initial post highlighted the profound tensions that can arise when personal loyalty collides with public accountability. Malcolm Jamal Warner, who portrayed Theo Huxtable, also addressed the situation with notable care. In interviews, Warner described Cosby as a mentor and someone who had been deeply influential in his life. While he acknowledged the pain of hearing women's accounts of sexual assault, he maintained that the Cosby he knew had been great to me and great for a lot of people. Warner lamented the disintegration of Cosby's legacy, reflecting on how painful it was to witness the downfall of someone who had contributed so much to television, comedy, and the black community. He avoided directly commenting on the validity of the accusations, emphasizing instead that he could not speak to what he did not witness. Warner's responses revealed the difficulty many felt in reconciling the man they knew personally with the actions of which he stood accused. Similarly, Quesia Pium, who played the youngest Huxtable, Rudy, echoed Warner's sentiments. Pium accompanied Cosby to court at the outset of his trial, explaining that she was there to support a man who had been a positive force in her life. Like Warner, she distinguished between the Cosby she had known as a mentor and father figure and the allegations against him, which she said were for the courts to decide. Pium's stance drew criticism from some quarters, but also highlighted how deeply personal relationships can complicate public judgments, particularly when those relationships were formed in formative years under unique circumstances. Lisa Bonet, who played Denise Huxtable, took a markedly different stance. Known for her long-standing creative and personal differences with Cosby, differences that contributed to her departure from the show, Bonet was reportedly unsurprised by the accusations when they surfaced. Though she did not speak out as frequently or as directly as some of her former castmates, her distance from Cosby and The Cosby Show reflected a different kind of reckoning, one that had begun for her long before the scandals came to light. Bonet's daughter, Zoe Kravitz, later alluded to the discomfort she felt about Cosby, reinforcing the sense that not all relationships within the show's tight-knit fictional family were as positive behind the scenes. Beyond the immediate cast, reactions from Hollywood luminaries painted a vivid picture of outrage, heartbreak, and reflection. Many in the entertainment industry saw Cosby's conviction as a milestone in the Me Too movement, proof that even the most powerful could be held accountable. When that conviction was overturned, their sense of progress was shaken. Amber Tamblyn, a founding member of Time's Up, voiced fury over the court's decision, saying it was proof that the fight for justice had not gone far enough. Rosanna Arquette and Christine Lottie echoed these sentiments, expressing solidarity with Cosby's accusers and lamenting what they saw as another example of the system protecting privileged men. Gabrielle Union, Aisha Tyler, Deborah Messing, and many others used their platforms to call attention to the broader issues of sexual violence, power, and systemic failure, emphasizing the need for continued activism and reform. For some, like Jerry Seinfeld and Chris Rock, the revelations about Cosby were difficult to process on a personal level. Both men had admired Cosby as a pioneering comedian and as someone who had helped open doors for others in the industry. Their comments reflected the shock and sorrow felt by those who had seen Cosby as a hero and role model. Rock summed up the sentiment by saying, "I hope it's not true. I really do." His words captured the painful ambivalence that many felt, mourning not just for the victims, but for the collapse of an icon whose work had once brought joy and pride. Meanwhile, activists and legal figures weighed in on the implications of Cosby's release. Attorneys Lisa Bloom and Gloria Allred, who represented many of Cosby's accusers, expressed disappointment and concern that the decision would discourage survivors from coming forward. They emphasized that the overturning of Cosby's conviction was not a vindication of his conduct, but the result of legal technicalities, a crucial distinction as debates over justice and accountability raged on. What began as one of television's most beloved and groundbreaking shows ended under the weight of betrayal, scandal, and shocking truths. The Cosby Show gave the world laughter, lessons, and unforgettable moments. But behind the scenes, the man who once seemed like a legend left behind a legacy forever tainted by his crimes. Are you the type of person who can still watch the show, separating the art from the artist, or do you believe that supporting it means turning a blind eye to injustice, and it should be boycotted altogether? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this video made you reflect, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that explores the hidden truths behind the legends.